Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Business as a Magical Practice. And I am so excited that you're joining me today for this very special episode. If you're new to the podcast, you might not know that every 11 episodes, we'll do a very special episode that is more casual and behind the scenes of my business and my clients' businesses. And so this is actually episode 77, and episode 66 wasn't a very special episode because I was doing the Effortless Expansion 3-day event. So it's actually been 22 whole episodes since we got to celebrate together. And I'm excited to dive in because I've gotten a lot of questions from you in the meantime. Before I answer those questions, I want to talk about something that has come up a few times recently in my mastermind, the Alchemical Business Intensive, which is that people are wondering if they should start a podcast. Podcasts are kind of a big deal right now, totally hip. Everyone seems to have a podcast, and that doesn't mean it'll automatically help your business to have one. So there are obviously a lot of reasons why you should or shouldn't start a podcast. So today we're going to go behind the scenes of my business and look at my process to show you exactly why I started Business as a Magical Practice and how we got to be where we are today, so you can get some insight into whether or not this will be a good decision for your business. So I actually wanted to start a podcast for a long time. I love podcasts. I listen to them as soon as I think I found the podcasts app on my phone in like 2015, maybe 2013. I'm not sure, somewhere around that range. And as soon as I found it, I just went nuts. I was so excited. I was living in a rural area, which doesn't have great streaming capacity. Anyone else who has tried to live off grid and everyone puts stuff out where you have to stream a video from Wi-Fi or from data, it just doesn't work at all. So when I found podcasts, the podcast app where I can just download audios and listen to them wherever I am, whether or not I'm on a farm or walking around town, it blew my mind, and I suddenly got obsessed with them. So I've been listening to podcasts for a few years and just totally obsessed with them, listening to them every single day. And I just knew that I wanted to have one. It was something that it's a medium that I love. I got so much value from them. So it was something that inherently excited me. A friend of mine, a peer in my space, started a podcast right around when I was talking about starting one. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, if you can start one so quickly, why can't I? Like, of course. And it really kicked me in the butt to be like, of course, like this is something I want. So 10 days later, I had my podcast out and just went to town writing my first few episodes and recording them. And I'd launched podcasts for other people before, so I knew the process of actually launching a podcast. It is not that hard. But just because you can launch a podcast doesn't mean you should launch a podcast. So I want to say that because if you are newer to business and you are not at a sufficiency point in business, like you're not making enough to cover your business expenses and to pay your personal expenses, then it might not be a good idea to start a podcast right now, because it's more of a long game thing. Like, I think social media is also a long game thing. So when you're just starting off with business and you're doing some sort of one-on-one service, or pretty much when you're selling an online digital service of some sort, whether that's coaching or graphic design or tarot readings, it's so much more effective to do one-on-one interactions and reach outs to people than it is to start a podcast and wait for your podcast audience to build up. So I went into it very intentionally being, I had only done referral, gotten fully booked for a year. I well booked out. My prices were already pretty high for my services, and at that point, that's when I decided to start a podcast, because I knew 6 months from then I wanted to launch my mastermind program. So I was seeing 6 months out, I think that I can build enough momentum so that in 6 months from now, when I launch my mastermind program, the podcast will really be serving it. And that insight was 100% accurate. So I launched the podcast in August 2019, and I launched my mastermind. Oh wait, I'm getting my years wrong. August 2020. And I launched Alchemical Business Intensive, the first round, in February 2020. So 2021, there we go. So that was around 6 months later. And the women who joined, at least half of them had heard about me through the podcast or fell in love with me through the podcast. So the whole point of it was building expertise and giving value ahead of time that allowed these women to feel comfortable enough to join the mastermind. If I would have chosen a different medium and gone hard on a YouTube channel or something else, like, the same thing would have happened. But my medium that I wanted to be in was podcasts, because I love podcasts. If you don't like podcasts, you probably shouldn't go with podcasts. Like, if you don't care about anything, like, first of all, go on the medium that you enjoy, so that you're already going to be familiarized with it. You'll have a leg up from other people. If you don't like any of the mediums, I would go with the more video based than I would a podcast. I don't ever watch YouTube. I never watch videos. I only listen to audios. So I don't care about YouTube at all. I don't want to spend time on it and learn the tips and tricks and watch how people do YouTube videos really well. So going on that medium didn't make sense for me. But if you're going straight out, you don't know any of the mediums, like, I would actually recommend YouTube over a podcast, because video converts higher than audio and higher than written word. So if you're a neutral spot right now and you don't care about the medium and you're willing to learn any medium, I would actually recommend a YouTube over podcast. But that's an aside. If you are someone who you are already at a sufficiency point in your business and you like podcasts and you think that you have something to share on podcasts, like, I would say do it immediately, and be patient with it. Be really okay with the fact that this is a long game medium. Like, you're most likely not going to get like a client right out the gate from your first episode, or even your first 3 months of episodes, but it is something that builds up over time, builds your expertise up over time. And it is an absolutely bingeable thing. If you look at the stats of podcasts, people will find a podcast that they like and they'll go and binge listen to all of the episodes. So if you've been every single week putting out a new podcast, that is so much value that someone could get to you right when they find you. And then suddenly they'll become sold on you. So I wanted to put those benefits in. And yeah, I think that's pretty clear of, like, make sure if you're brand new to business or you're not at a sufficiency point in business, I would focus on direct marketing tactics to get your clients, get affiliates, get referrals, directly reach out to people, tell people what you do. If you are at a sufficiency point and you're planning on launching a course or a program, start 6 months, an entire year ahead of time of building up your podcast value bank, because it does take a little bit of time to actually build up your momentum. And it is pretty simple. Like, you don't need a fancy mic. You don't need fancy editing software. I have a blue Yeti mic that my husband had for a podcast or interviews he was doing, but you can do it just as easily at earbuds on your iPhone and record it directly to your iPhone. And you can, like, I still edit everything on iMovie. I have GarageBand. There's fancier ways, but I don't see there isn't a huge leg up for me to improve upon the very simple system we've put in place in my business. So Yeah, let me know if you have any more questions about launching a podcast, and hope that story was helpful for you. So moving on to your questions, not yet. I wanted to share 3 of my favorite things right now, um, because I just really like sharing these with you guys. Elizabeth on my team was like, "You've shared favorite things on the last few very special episodes, so you should probably switch it up." And I was like, "But I like sharing my favorite things with you guys, so I'm just going to do it anyways." Um, the first favorite thing right now is Natalie Granger Hypnosis, which is nataliegranger.com. I got a custom hypnosis from her for some of my goals in my life and in my business, and I immediately saw results. And I commissioned her to do a custom hypnosis for the next round of the Alchemical Business Intensive. So I've already given that to the women who've joined ahead of time, who pre-enrolled in the program, and like one of them's already messaged me being like, "I got a sale directly after listening one time." So her stuff is really cool. Definitely check her out, Natalie Granger. We'll link to it in the show notes. The next one is more mundane one, which is a Chrome extension. If you use the browser Chrome, which I do, there's an extension you can add to your Chrome browser called Dark Reader. And what it does is it changes all of your web pages from a white background to a black background. And I was finding that my eyes were getting really tired even while wearing blue blocker glasses. So it's a completely free Chrome extension. We'll link to it in the show notes. And it just, by changing all of your web pages, it automatically changes them from a white background to a black background, and it will save your eyes. So highly recommend that. And the last one is I've been listening to a bunch of sci-fi romance novels as audiobooks on Scribd, which is a kind of like a audio and book version of Netflix, where there's a bunch of books and audios that you can listen to. And it's how I've tricked myself into enjoying doing the dishes. It was a huge pain point for me, doing the dishes, like this very simple daily task. And I was just putting it off and then getting really annoyed having dirty dishes in the sink. And I just remembered that I used to really like listening to audios while doing the dishes, but I've been burnt out on the podcast that I had been listening to, and kind of needing a break from any self-help or business advice, and just needed something more playful fiction. So I've been listening to those and getting totally obsessed. And the one that I've listened to recently that I really loved was called the Hidden Legacy series. And I have the link down in the show notes if anyone else is a sci-fi, almost young adult fiction books. I don't know if anyone else shares that, but and it was actually my dear friend Robin Langford from Wicked Veracity. She does a lot of astrology forecasts for me and for my business. And she told me that Virgos, and I have a lot of Virgo in my chart, including my son, told me that Virgos have a hard time with passive rest. And it was such a big revelation, because I was kind of micro shaming myself for not being someone who could just like sit still and be happy just chilling out, like not my personality. So now I've been listening to these audiobooks, which are so fun, and can actually, instead of being like, well, I don't feel like just sitting around during this global pandemic, so I'll just go, and I can't go out and do something because it's a global pandemic. And instead of just working more, which is kind of my default, because it is a sense of joy for me, I've been listening to these fun fiction audiobooks and like crafting and drawing and doing this more active rest. So I wanted to share that with you guys. So moving on to your questions. And like always, these come in from Instagram and from our Facebook group. So if you want your questions answered on the next very special episode, send them over to the links in the show notes. You can DM me on Instagram at The Dirty Alchemy, or go to the Facebook group Business as a Magical Practice. And the questions we have this week are: how do I stop procrastinating and get in-person events that are filled? So, from the way that this person phrased the question, I'm guessing that these are not two different questions, but that you're procrastinating on things that you know would fill your in-person event, not just like how to stop procrastinating as one question and how to get in-person events filled as another question. So for the procrastinating things, you're I'm curious, are you procrastinating because it's a hard thing? Because of a trauma response, or because it doesn't actually matter? Like, do you have this big long list of to-dos of tasks that you know will help fill out your event, your in-person event, but you're not doing them? Is it, if it's because it's a hard thing, you just don't want to do it? It can be as simple as making sure that you are doing it as the first thing you're doing during the day. Like, have the night before, write out the three most important tasks that you need to get done the next day. The next day, keep your phone on airplane mode and don't do anything. I mean, if you have kids and like a dog and stuff, like do and need to work out, whatever. But when you're like actually going to work for the day, make sure the first things before email, before going on Instagram, is to do those things and get them done, even if they are the hard thing. If it is a trauma response, then do some inner child work. You can look that up, inner child work in response to take care of yourself. And also, Existential Kink by Carolyn Elliott is amazing for procrastination, and it's something that I do on a weekly basis when there's things that I've been procrastinating. And another reason could just be because it doesn't matter. Like, if you have a long list and you haven't pared it down to the most potent activities and tasks that you can complete in order to hit your goals, like, review your last launch, review the last launch of your in-person event, and see which things actually got people signed up, and delete the rest of them. Only do the things that actually made a difference last round. So much of us will just try and do all of the things that we could possibly do, when only, if we're talking about the 80-20 principle, then only 20% of the things that we do have 80% of the effect, get 80% of the results. So like, what are those 20% of things, and only do those, even if they're the hard things. Another thing is, you could just decide that you don't have to do those things. Like, if you haven't launched this before and you don't know what will work, if you don't know if a webinar is going to work, or if DMing people is going to work, or putting an ad out, whatever is going to work, so you want to try all the things. Instead, you can just decide to do the things that you think will, how can you ask yourself how you can accomplish the result in a way that's more fun, that excites you, because you are the CEO of your business and you get to make decisions like that for yourself and allow your excitement and your desire to guide you in ways that would actually please you. But you do need to get clear on whether it's just like you not wanting to do the hard things that you know you have to do, whether it's a trauma response or something different. But you can get super creative. We have incredibly creative, powerful brains that can come up with different ideas that are different than what everyone else is doing, that will get us good results. So don't do something just because everyone else is telling you to do it. Okay, on to the next question. I'm in the process of hiring my first team member. How can I create the perfect job posting to attract the right people? So what you want to do is you want to speak to the desires of your ideal candidate. You can use questions like, are you bored in your current admin role? Would you like to work from home on your own schedule? Versus, we're looking for a candidate who blah, 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 blah. So the same amount of love and attention you give to your marketing posts, you want to give to your job description, and infuse your personality into it. So get specific in who you're talking to. You want people to think, wow, that's me. Not some ambiguous, this is for everyone thing, just like in marketing, right? Don't be overly wordy. Communicate your mission and vision in a straightforward way they can understand. Don't forget to add or don't be afraid to add heart and seduction. This is how you create a moving, specific, unicorn luring job posting. And for compensation, because that's a big question mark for a lot of people. If you have a specific rate or a specific rate range in mind, list it in the posting. If you're not sure, do some research into average hourly pay for virtual assistants, online business managers, or graphic designers, whatever you're actually hiring for. Or you can check places like Upwork or Indeed to see what people are charging. Because you want to attract people who are interested at the rate that you're at, or else you're going to spend a lot of time interviewing people that it's not a good fit. I do have a blog on this. You can go to thedirtyalchemy.com and look for the blog, The Ultimate Guide to Hiring Your First Virtual Assistant. It's thorough. I hope you enjoy it. We'll link to it in the show notes. And then anyone in the Alchemical Business Intensive also gets our full hiring guide, which is something like 40 pages of information about everything I learned hiring for multiple 6- and 7-figure online businesses. So definitely look at that too. Last round, we saw multiple people in ABI hire their first or second team members using that information from the hiring guide. So that was really fun to see. Okay, moving on to the third and final question, which is, what is one simple foolproof magical practice I can use to support my business success? Foolproof, I usually go to Kundalini yoga, because you don't have to use like your active consciousness to do anything, and it really taps into some higher level magic. So one that I love is Yan Chakra Kriya. It is an 11-minute Kriya, very simple. You can just Google Gyan Chakra Kriya and it'll come up. Another one is, I really like Jan Spiller's book, New Moon Astrology. It's something I've been doing for a few years now, of essentially every new moon, in the 2 hours after the new moon, you write a list of up to 10 wishes. And she has a very specific way of phrasing it, and she gives recommendations depending on the sign that the new moon is in, or your north node. And I love it so much. I think I've actually mentioned it on one of these very special episodes, now that I'm thinking about it. It's really fun because it's pretty much every child's desire of making wishes. So every month you get to make 10 wishes. It's really fun. It does work. I don't know if I believe in exactly how she explains why it works. I think one powerful side of it is you are every month coming together and deciding what your priorities are, and then infusing magic and intention behind them. But you can just look for New Moon Astrology by Jan Spiller, and it's a fun read. It's a fun process. And again, I've been doing it for years. So that feels very foolproof magical practice. So that is all we have for today. If you want your question answered by me in the next very special episode, send it over on Instagram or in our private Facebook group. Both are linked in the show notes. And we're still taking applications for anyone interested in the Alchemical Business Intensive for this very last day. We're starting October 1st, which is tomorrow. Very hard deadline if you are listening to this live. So go to thedirtyalchemy.com/ABI and apply before you miss your chance. We just sent the gift boxes out to the magical women who have already enrolled in this round. And oh my goodness, the gift boxes are so fun. They're so fun. There's some truly magical items in there. And obviously that's nothing compared to the magic you'll be creating in your business when you join. One of the women who joined already messaged to tell me she's received her highest payment from a client. It's her highest paying client ever. And she credits it to joining ABI. So we haven't even started the program, and just from the preliminary material I've sent out, that has helped her get her highest paying client. And yeah, we haven't even we haven't even begun yet. So go apply now and let's chat today before the doors close. Link is in the show notes for that. And I will see you next time.